Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Good morning. This is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to this week's edition of the Wesleyan Connection podcast. Today I am continuing the sort of mini-series, I suppose would be a good word for it, of the sessions that are recorded at annual conference this year. Today I'm going to share with you the report from Roger Redding for the Holston Conference Foundation. Now, I have worked with Roger on and off now for several years. I've had him in my church talking about endowments and the endowment process, and it does work because I can attest to how they work in my local church and how some folks have been forethoughtful enough. I'm not sure that's a correct word, but they thought it out and they've left money for some specific reasons, and we get to use that money on a yearly basis, and it really helps as we do things. Roger always has some emotional content, shall we say, because he's telling stories about people whose lives have been touched by Jesus Christ and who have been blessed in such a way that they realize that even in their death there is something that they can do to continue to make a difference. And so you need to listen to these stories. You need to hear about these men and about these women that have listened to God's call in their life and decided that there is more that can be done, even when they die. And so they have set up endowments. They have set up gifts and trusts and other kinds of legal instruments, they would say, to continue the legacy of giving that they exhibited in their life. And so listen to what Roger has to say this morning. Listen to these stories. Let them touch your hearts. And as Roger says, listen to the Holy Spirit. Maybe, just maybe, God is calling you to respond in a generous fashion as well. God bless. Hope you enjoy.
Now I'd like to call upon Roger Redding for the Holston Conference Foundation report.
Thank you, Bishop. Good afternoon, Holston. You can find our written report on page 190 and 191 of the Book of Reports. Last year, the Holston Conference Foundation enjoyed a wonderful year of growth, adding 50 new accounts and $6.7 million in new deposits. We also made distributions back to churches and ministries of $5.1 million. Plus, we awarded over $700,000 in grants and scholarships. Paul Bowman and I conducted over 20 workshops and made over 50 presentations in local churches and visited with dozens of individuals about their legacy plans and opportunities. Through the years, the foundation has continued to grow both in size and reputation. As 2016 ended, we set a new all-time record high of over $111 million in assets under management, and that didn't happen by itself. About 40% of all the funds held in the foundation are actually owned by local churches, 10% by the conference, 4% by districts, 10% by other institutions and ministries. The remaining 36% of assets were given by people through their estate plans and gifts to create endowments, scholarships, and other special purpose funds to support the churches, ministries, and programs that they selected, or they're in the form of planned gifts which will eventually do so. 2016 was also a very productive year in the financial markets. Our most popular investment option, the Balanced Growth Fund, was up almost 8%. The Equity Growth Fund was up over 10.5%. The Intermediate Income Fund was up 2.5%, and the Short-Term Income Fund was up 1.3%. The Balanced Growth Fund has a trailing average annual return for the past 5 years of 8.88%. And this track record has a lot to do in explaining why churches are calling to invite us into ministry with them. The Holston Conference Foundation was created by this conference to be a separate but related entity to assist churches and ministries attract, invest, and steward special gifts and resources. While the dollars and numbers are important, the faces and stories behind many of our accounts are often the real blessings. Their stories give us hope. Bob Ammons was born in 1910 in Embryville community in Washington County, Tennessee. After graduating from Lamar High School, he moved to Kingsport and later became a successful auto parts dealer in the 1940s and 50s. In 1961, Bob married Grace. Grace was a member of the Oakwood Forest Christian Church, and Bob moved his membership there, but he never forgot his roots, his love for Embryville, and his church home, and he returned as often as he could. Bob passed away in January 1983. Grace lived to age 96 and passed away 31 years after him in 2014, but she never forgot Bob's love for his childhood church. In 1997, she added a codicil to her will directing a bequest to the foundation to be held in behalf of the Embryville United Methodist Church to distribute earnings used without restrictions. Her nephew, Lawrence Cade, approved the creation of the Robert Bob and Grace Harwood Ammons Endowment that will perpetually produce $2,000 to $3,000 per year for the Embryville Church. If Embryville Church should ever cease, the will states that the funds are to be used to benefit other small churches in Holston Conference. Thank you, Grace and Bob, for blessing our church. Sue Quillen. Wow. Jenny, have you know Sue really well? Sue called to introduce herself to me in late 2000. And she was reading an article in the Call about the Foundation's personal record information book. And my commercial is, by the way, they're over in the Herald Center at our display booth. Go pick up a copy or two. She explained that she was a minister's widow and that her mom had died, and that she would like to speak with someone about her plans. She asked me to send some materials, then later invited me for a visit. Sue was full of life, told wonderful stories, and seemed to know everything about everyone at Holston Conference. Even though her husband Claude had died 10 years earlier after serving 34 churches in 38 years, she was eager to listen and share conference news. Sue and Claude were married in 1953, and they spent their lives together inseparable as partners in their life of service to the church. She was a Blount County native and expressed her desire to Claude early on that they not serve too far away from home. Claude assured her that wherever they were sent, that Jesus was there before them, and that as long as they have him and each other, it will always be all right. Sue added that it turned out to be true, as 23 of the churches they served were in Big Stone Gap, far away from home, but she said each one was a blessing. Sue shared that she was getting by on a small pension, but she wanted to get her ducks in a row. She and Claude had never had children of their own, but they thought a seminary scholarship to train new pastors would please Claude. I followed up with a draft document, and she followed up by visiting an attorney. Through her lifetime, Sue served faithfully through her gifts of hospitality and encouragement, and boy, could she cook. She got very close to everyone in the foundation office and called and emailed frequently. Occasionally, she asked us over for fellowship, conference gossip, and a home-cooked meal. She even made Rita eat her peas. Sue always shared her faith and her great sense of humor. She said, "Laughter is a tool God gives you to survive." We all know too well that she lived through some really deep valleys and pain, but somehow always seemed to come up looking for the good. She passed away on February 1st, 2015, but she left the world a better place. Her estate established the Claude and Martha Sue Quillen Seminary Scholarship for students who intend to return and serve as a pastor in Holston Conference. While Sue is greatly missed, we trust everything is all right in heaven for Sue. because Jesus and Claude were there before her. God bless you, Sue. Harry Thomas Becker served many decades as the leader of Boy Scout Troop 50, sponsored by Beaver Ridge United Methodist Church. His efforts resulted in over 40 young men achieving the rank of Eagle, and hundreds of others were influenced by his dedication to serve others and by his quietly profound faith. Educated as an engineer, Tom served Beaver Ridge as a handyman, worked on numerous scout projects, was prominent lay leader and on many committees, and sang in 2 different choirs. He served on many mission projects, helping provide food, shelter, and wood for heating. Last year, a member of the church called the foundation about Tom and explained the deep and lasting impact he had made on he and his wives' lives by introducing them to the joys of service and ministry through Project Crossroads. Tom's enthusiasm and dedication to helping others left a permanent mark on their lives in the church. They were blessed by his friendship, his witness, and asked if it were possible to create something permanent to support both the Scouts and Project Crossroads in Tom's memory. Of course, the answer was yes. We prepared a document, and they responded with gifts and an invitation for others to give as well. Tom died February 11, 2015, but his legacy will live on through the Tom Becker Endowment and the generosity of some very dear friends who are thankful for his life, an example of Christian service. God bless you, Tom. I want to note that none of these stories are about wealth. They're all about generosity. 2 Corinthians 8:5 says it best. They gave themselves to the Lord first, and then to us, consistent with God's will. Recently, we've had discussions with Jeff Lambert and CFA about the ways the foundation can partner with the stewardship team, CFA, churches, and districts to encourage and educate members about endowments, plan giving, and bequest. Toward this goal, we are excited to bring Reverend Clayton Smith to speak at 2 workshops, September 9th in the Knoxville area. Concord, you're supposed to give me an answer, please. In Abington, and Ralph and I have talked about Pleasant View. Clayton has served with Adam Hamilton as executive pastor of generosity at the Church of the Resurrection since 2005. He is the author of a book, Propelled. It's a great, great book. Propel, Good Stewardship, Greater Generosity, and then At the Crossroads, Leadership Lessons for the Second Half of Life. While all the details are worked out on the workshops, we invite you to attend. Encourage other leaders from your church to be there too. For the first time in the history of the United States, older adult population controls 3/4 of all American wealth. Studies show that people, especially baby boomers, want to leave a legacy that can change lives and sustain a vital future for our church. Just this morning, Betty Furchess set a date for a program at Friendsville, and Brad Hyde introduced me to Diane to try to do something at Kodak. If God is whispering in your ear to do something, we invite you to give us a call. Bishop, this is our report.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.